record on my
Okay.
computer. Okay, so we are recording right now, and everyone is okay with it. So welcome to the XR Empathy Cafe, and we meet every week on Friday to practice method of empathy circle. We do that because we want to build our culture of empathy, and we want to support Extinction Rebellion community with empathy circle method. And this is the place when people might express themselves and be heard. For anyone who is watching this recording, you can find more information on the website empathycircle.com, and you will find links below this recording. And our session will last for 2 hours. We start with short introductions, every one of us, and then we start our discussion. And the last 15 minutes of our session we will spend doing the briefing of our today's session. Okay, so let's start with introductions. Maybe I start with myself. My name is Karolina. I'm calling from Poland, Central Europe. I am a member of local group, Extinction Rebellion local group, and I am also a member of Empathy Circle team. That's for me. Marta?
Hello, I'm Marta. I'm based in Cork, in Ireland, and also part of Extinction Rebellion here.
Okay, Bill?
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm a retired special education teacher here in Northern California. I'm a member of the Empathy 10 team, and I'm also taking the XR Facilitator training.
And Bob, would you?
Hello, I'm Bob Brown from Thousand Oaks, California, United States. We're near Los Angeles, and I am delighted to be part of a movement that dignifies human beings and helps us live together better.
Thank you. So today's topic is share your vision of culture and the world you desire or you would like to live in. What would society and the world look like? And who would like to start? Because all of us, we know the method.
Yeah.
Who would like to start and who would keep the time?
I can keep the time.
Yeah, okay.
I'll start.
Okay, so you start and you choosing first person.
All right. Marta, would you please listen to me?
Yes, Bob.
Okay. There are more than 7 billion of us on this little planet. And what I see is that we are led by people who abide by a philosophy of scarcity. And what I see are leaders who play off one group against another with the fear of scarcity so that the leaders themselves can be enriched and have a very selfish abundance.
Yeah. So you're saying that we live in a world where our leaders have a mindset of scarcity, of not having enough, and that's sort of the prevailing mindset in the world today.
Yes, and I think that scarcity mindset is short-sighted. I'm very convinced that the world offers abundance for everything we need, and so my vision is that we start living out of a consciousness of abundance, and we learn to start sharing better and being less selfish, and empathy is the vehicle that will allow us to make these consciousness changes.
So you propose an alternative way, a better way of focusing on abundance, of seeing abundance as real and being there, and using that in the gift culture and things like empathy as a way to move forward and away of that scarcity mentality.
Right. And in our empathy movement, and I say hello to Edwin wherever you are today, I see very few other movements that are as powerful and as effective as the empathy movement to change people's hearts and minds and consciousness, and to bring about in each one of us the culture of abundance and generosity. And we need to keep at it. It may be a hard struggle, and it is worth the struggle.
So you salute Edwin wherever he is today, and in a way, I hear you celebrating that this empathy movement is so special in what it offers, that it's offering a different way, and that it might not always be easy, but it's worth pursuing because it embodies this abundance that is so necessary now.
And I think back to Martin Luther King Jr., who died 51 years ago. And he was up against a tremendous opposition. And yet he had the faith and the grace and the love and the joy that kept him going. And I think we need to tap into that so we can keep going too.
I'm thinking of Martin Luther King Jr. and the difficulties that he went through when he was fighting, but that he was keeping alive the love around him, and that definitely helped. And we need to carry on that fight.
And there are so many people in the last 100 years, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, and we can all name them, but we need to use them as our inspiration to keep this thing going.
Yeah. So it's important that we pick these people that we admire and that have been around for the last 100 years, and that we use, the energy of them and we plow on.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel fully heard.
Bill, will you listen to me, please?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing that has been very present with me, but I've not had the time to dedicate myself to thinking about it, but I think I will at some point, is that I feel there's a lot of things I knew as a child, or that that were very obvious to me as a child, that it seems like I forgot over the years, or didn't really pay so much attention to them. And so now when I think back, one thing I did when I was a kid was I had a very nice upbringing. It was easy. So I suppose that justifies it. But when I was a kid, I would stand in front of school in the morning, because I'd get early in with the school bus, and I'd stand in front of school, sometimes, smoking a cigarette when during the teenage years. And I'd just smile and say good morning to people who were passing by. And I'd just stand there and do that because it felt good to just stand there and smile and make people happy by smiling to them first thing in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, so reflecting on your childhood, and there were certain truths that seemed to be self-evident in childhood, and you feel that as you've grown, that, you know, you remember them, but they somehow are not as vivid as they seemed in childhood, or you're not as in touch with them sometimes. So you went back to a time when you were being, I guess, in your teenage years, where you just kind of stand in, get to school early, and just smile and then greet people. And you were very touched by the reaction that you got.
Yeah. I remember, like, last year before I left school, you do this silly booklet, you know, it's like you're leaving the year, so you create something. And I remember I was elected as the friendliest person in school. And it wasn't, I suppose I didn't really pay much attention to that at the time. But now when I remember that, it sort of means something. And I think it's because it was an age where I was just very free. So if I wanted to be smiley and if I wanted to share love with people, I do that and not restrain myself very much. And I think over the years in society, as it is these days, you sort of learn how to rein yourself in, because it's not acceptable to be too nice. Yeah.
So you're reflecting on that, and you were elected the friendliest person in your school. And at the time, it didn't make an impact on you as much as it does reflecting on it now and how important it is. And you always felt that you were free to express yourself and how you wanted to do that. And that is a very freeing thing. And then you've noticed that the conditioning we get as we grow up is to be more reserved and to not do those things. Somehow that breaks social norms sometimes to some people.
Yeah. And so I've had many situations since where I've been, you know, people had conflict with me or were upset for one reason or another. And the grounds was, suppose they were suspicious, or you know, it created conflict somehow, that I was, you know, me being too nice, that I must want something, or there must be some something like that. And so when I'm reflecting now about the vision for the future I desire, I suppose that demands of me a certain degree of freedom in my imagining, which means I need to go back, you know, retrace back to a time where I was free to do what felt right. And that's sort of, yeah.
Okay, so you experienced as you grew older, and you would then be free or something, you got into conflicts because people would think you are quote unquote too nice, and think that that was a form of manipulation. And so then now as you reflect on the culture of empathy, envisioning a culture of empathy, you see that you need to get in touch with that part of you, that kind of natural nice person who was not being manipulative, and and then basically get check in with those roots and then express yourself without fear.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, sure. All right, I'll talk to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. Well, I think for those who might be watching or anything, this is my idea of a little microcosm of a culture of empathy, where people make a commitment to listen to another person first, and then and that is, I guess, highly valued. I'll stop there.
So you speaking to me, but also to those who might watching this recording. And you believe that what we are actually doing now, right now, is sort of model or idea of what you would desire, and micro community, the micro community, where people first listen to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're constantly, as I think, Bob said, we're presented with a culture where people are playing on our fears and scarcity, whatever it is. It boils down to me, like a fear, like you should be afraid. And so one of the projects that I sort of, have thought about is just going out there and being what I call the designated listeners. And you would just have a shirt that would say empathy, we'll listen to you. And then if enough people did that, basically we walk out of our houses and we take precautions. We lock our doors and stuff because we know that there might be an attack of some sort. And what if you walked out your door and rather than feeling that you're going to be attacked or in one way or the other, that if you got into trouble, there'd be someone to listen to you. And how would that change your worldview? I think it would be very profound. I'll stop there.
So you're talking about the current culture, society we live, and you refer to what Bob was saying about scarcity versus abundance. And we live in a culture where a lot of people plays with fear, with scarcity, with competition, and that sort of things. And we have a lot of habits created in this culture, like we lock our homes, and you think that about the situation where we would not do all this stuff, and when we are in a situation of danger, if I understand you correctly, what would happen if we knew that we will be heard, we will be listened? That's what you mean?
Yeah, that or danger or just need. It doesn't have to be, danger, but yeah, that we'd be listened to, and we see, and it's not something that some of the more cynical people say doesn't. You see it when there's a tragedy or a big, problem or whatever, or emergency. People tend to come together and work together. It's very natural. We'll stop there.
So you saying that it's not just the dream, it's actually happening in our real life. If there is any dramatic, tragic situation, people actually gotta come together and cooperate and support each other.
Right.
And it's very often, it's nothing special. Like it's happening
Well,
very often.
it's natural. It's inborn. Now, I also will recognize that that there are looters and there are people who take advantage of the situation too. But I think that what the cooperative impulse is much stronger, much more effective, and much more rewarding.
So you admit that there are also people who take advantage of the difficult or tragic situations, criminals and other people who do that. But typical, or the most typical majority of the behavior is actually mutual aid, mutual help, supporting each other and cooperating together.
Yes, thank you, Carolina. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Okay, so I will close the circle and speak to Bob.
I'm listening.
And first I have to say that I'm a little bit nervous because today it should be the first circle I facilitate as a main facilitator, and it is in English it would be first time, but actually I'm lucky that all participants are I see you as my friends, so I feel very comfortable with it. And oh, I'm blessed that first circle is with you.
So I hear you saying that you are nervous, a little apprehensive as you facilitate the circle, but you see in the circle friends and you feel good about that.
Yeah. It gives me a feeling of safety. And I wish the same thing to Marta, who will be next week, will be main facilitator.
So you're feeling safe with this group and you wish the same for Marta, who will be doing this next week.
But obviously more participants.
With more participants.
Okay. That's interesting what you were all saying, because I can resonate with everything I was heard from Bob, from Marta, and from Bill. I like the idea that replacing this philosophy of scarcity and competition with concept of abundance and just sharing or gift economy. And I love the fact that we don't need to invent anything. It's already there, what Bill said. He tried to show us that it's already there. We just need to use what we have. And I love the idea. Well, I remember the last meeting in last circle, we were talking about some values culture have. I want to recall those values. It was safety, curiosity, authenticity, honesty, openness, and softening. And I remember this feeling that when we talk about some values, it sounds so general that it means nothing. But when you connect those values with particular situation, like Marta did, suddenly it means something. And every one of those values, safety, curiosity, authenticity, honesty, openness, and softening, means something very important when we connect that with particular situations.
So you think
Sorry.
back to last week's circle, and there were values identified: authenticity, sincerity, honesty, openness, curiosity, and there may be more. And although the words themselves are vague, when they are brought into a specific situation, they come alive and we can live them and be them for each other. And that's very encouraging for you.
Yeah. And actually, all those things you were saying and those values I just recalled, for me are part of vision I would like to live in, I desire. And I was talking a lot about it in former meetings, but well, this is what I want. And this Buddhist economy approach I would like to live in such a community actually embraces all you were talking about. So yeah, for me, everything is embraced in this approach.
So as you envision a community that lives these values and has relationships and bonds, that this is a possibility. It's built into us, and you welcome it and embrace it.
In this particular vision I have, obviously I don't expect, I saw that the time is up. I mean, everything you were talking is embraced in this vision of Buddhist economy approach, I believe, and I would like to live, but I don't obviously expect anybody to live the same way. This is something I would like to be in. Okay, I would like to explore and live this way.
So you're saying that this is your desire, and there may be others who have different visions, but for you, this is the one that you want to be living in.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard. Thank you.
Bill, would you please listen to me?
Sure, Bob, if you're happy to.
As we make connections in these empathy circles, we are connecting with each other, we are friends with each other, we are safe with each other. And this kind of friendship and strength and support and relationship can withstand any adversary.
Okay, you're saying that the practice of the empathy circle, and then as it has deepened our personal bonds, can withstand any adversary.
And there are some serious adversaries. Where did I read in today's paper that I believe it was in Uruguay? There was an election and a rightist man was elected after decades of progressive leadership. And so I don't want to kid myself that the world's going to immediately jump on the empathy bandwagon and live it and transform every person. But in spite of right-wing nationalist movements all around the globe, we will support each other and care for each other and endure the sufferings necessary to overcome these nationalist rightist movements.
So as you see the rise of authoritarianism around the world, specifically citing Uruguay, which used to have a very progressive government and now has elected a more rightist nationalist person, you really you understand the gravity and the power of the forces that would kind of our adversaries and arrayed against us from forming. But you still feel that this is the way to go, and the bonding and listening is the way to go, and it's stronger than that.
And even as I use the word adversary, I need to remember that deep down, none of us is an adversary to any of the others. We are all sisters and brothers, and even if they think they're adversaries, we need to treat them courteously and kindly and show them by our relationship with them that we are their friends, and we will love them into submission.
And so you're feeling that even though when you're reflecting on your use of the word adversary, but you have to remind yourself that they're really not. That's a shallow, sort of take on the situation. But deeper down, we're all brothers and sisters. And so therefore, even people who are, who we see as our adversaries need to be treated with respect and kindness. Right. And love them into submission.
I think I'll make a bumper sticker, love them into submission.
Yes.
And I need to be mindful that there may be emotional suffering, physical suffering, imprisonment, beatings, torture. And our solidarity must prevail.
Right. And so as you see with the situation in the world today, you realize that there might be, jailings, beatings, and all sorts of difficulties that we must, and challenges we must face. But that doesn't, that can't stop us.
Right. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. All right. Marta, would you listen to me?
Yes, Bill.
Okay. So in building a culture of empathy, there's, I agree with what everyone said as far as, the difficulties and the challenges that face us, and the essential power of community. So I'll stop there.
You resonate with what everyone said about the difficulties that are ahead, as well as believing in the essential power of the strength as the word.
And so, so what I thought when I think of building a culture of empathy, there are several things that, that even people that I admire just really didn't address, because they just, they were people of their times, just as we are. And one of those things is that we have to, and that's why I like this method so much, because we're getting right to the culture. Usually the deal is we have to agitate, we have to beat or kill people, and once we've done enough of that, then the paradise will reign. And of course what we're doing is we're building the exact opposite of a culture of empathy when we employ those techniques. And so I'm for working smarter, and I believe that the empathy, this listening circle process, is the core of that. I'll stop there.
So there's people, even people you admire, that have something lacking in in vision of future, and that when when thinking about the future, very often there's this idea that before things get good, there needs to come this period of struggle and violence and disgrace and all that. And what you're thinking is actually, by building this culture that is an alternative to that, we can just go for the culture of empathy and build that and focus on strengthening that instead of all these other ways of doing it.
And because I believe that essentially, I'm autodidact in someone. I mean, I've been trained, but I've also done a lot of independent study on my own. And so I feel that this need and this sort of feeling of community, functional community, is not only a deep, deep human ingrained, artifact, but it's a deep, deep biological artifact. If you think about animals and things like that, any multicellular organism, the cells are communicating empathetically towards the advancement of the whole. I know that if I get sick, my white blood cells will attack the disease and then die. And that's just part of what their life is. And all so I can speak these words.
Yeah, so you said there that you sort of autodidact self-learning, and one of the things in that is that this empathy happens at every scale. This humans have a desire for community and for connection and cooperation, but also looking even at the immune system, and just organisms, one cell will want to cooperate with the other cells around it, and that's just how things happen and build, and they have empathy for each other, and that's how it works.
Right. And so that's why in my, in my exposure and work with XR, I really think that XR has used empathy circles sort of as a de-escalation technique or therapy or something when someone's in need. But actually, I think it would be very effective to use it as a mode of communication. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So you're actually thinking in your interaction with XR, you've noticed that they use it as de-escalation or to support someone in need, but actually you see it being used as part of the culture. So being used on a regular basis just as a way of communicating.
Right.
Line tool, yeah.
And just to finish up, so I would see like a nice park on a spring day, and I would see maybe 50 circles, with maybe if we got, 500 or 1,000 or 100 people, 50 circles. And instead of blocking things, we would invite people in. They could walk around, but would be big enough to make a, impact, and we would listen to them. And then for XR, my suggestion would be to take some of the products from their Citizens and People's Assembly, such as like eliminate oil and gas subsidies, let's just say, and then engage people in conversation, invite them in. And, in Europe, we have Hershey's Kisses. That's not an advertisement, but they work. But, in England, a little tea and scones, you make people's day a little nicer with a New York accent. Hey, come on, have a tea, have a scone, come here. Okay, I'm done, thanks.
So you're even describing for an XR a vision of an action.
Yeah.
You're proposing an action really that you think could be, done in various different places, whereby in a nice sunny day in a park, or, it could be blocking a road, whatever, but just many circles doing empathy circles. And it could be done with a topic that would be relevant to XR, but to do a community activity, even if, treats and food and just the sharing experience is part of that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Marta. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. Carolina, will you listen to me?
Yes.
Oh, I had a story to tell you, so I'll tell you the story now, even if it's a bit out of... Well, it's not, because you see, Bill was describing a situation that we like, and that's the point of dreaming. It doesn't mean that we necessarily believe it's going to happen tomorrow, but we can still dream it, and that is part of building it. When I was a kid.
So you will tell a story, and it's not completely out of the topic, off topic, because in short, it's not completely off topic. And when we think about something, dream, it doesn't mean it must happen right after we said, but yeah, it's something we tend to.
So when I was a kid, I read this book, and it was a story of a little boy, and there was an alien, a Martian, an alien, a little boy alien that fell in his garden. So this boy just was there one day hanging from a tree.
So when you were a young girl, you read the book about the boy who met an alien, and the alien was also a boy. And one day, the boy from Earth meet the alien hanging from the tree.
And so two things about that story. One, the alien kid was upside down, but for him, that was the right way around.
So the alien was hanging on the tree upside down, but for him, it was correct.
So that was the first teaching for me, is, you know, it's the perspective. And the other thing was that every time the Earth boy asked the alien boy a question, the alien boy would do a bow.
So, and first thing was, this story taught you about different perspective on the same thing, that something for Earth boy was incorrect, for the alien boy was actually good and correct. And the second thing you learned from this story was the situation that when the Earth boy were asking question to the alien one always was bowing.
And the deeper the question, the deeper the bow.
And another thing was that when the more sophisticated, more philosophical, more deep question was, then the more deep and grateful bow the alien boy was giving.
And I think for the future, you know, this important learning is that there is no right, you know, the just asking questions and dreaming, just asking questions in a way is almost more important than giving answers sometimes.
And your constatation from the story was like, asking question might be more important than giving answers. The more we should, as much as we can, ask questions.
Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you. I like the story. I would like to know what the book was. And how young, how old you were when you read that? You're muted.
7, maybe 8, I don't know.
Yeah. Beautiful story. About hanging upside down and different perspectives. Yeah. Okay. What's happening to Bob? Oh, different perspective. Okay. Okay, I will choose Bill. Bill, would you reflect me?
Sure, happily.
Okay, so start time.
Sure.
Again, great round. A lot of things. About loving enemies, I suppose I would like to highlight a specific, I don't know if you use such word, aspect of this issue, this concept of loving the enemy. I'm not sure if I would like to love my enemy until he or she change their mind. That's not what I want. I believe that the key to connect with enemy is curiosity. And that's what creates love. Curiosity of another person. And to be curious of another person, I deeply disagree and even experience hatred from this person. I need to believe that this person is not wrong, is not a bad person. So there are two aspects. My belief, my deep faith in this in the other person that they are
Mhm.
not bad people, even they hate me. And the other thing is being curious who they are, why they behave this way, not that way. Curiosity of what they would like to share with others. I stopped there because it's a lot.
Okay. So you were looking and wanted to focus in on the issue of loving your enemy. And you feel that going in cold to someone who's really hostile to you and loving them is a bridge too far, a little bit, but you feel that there is a process to it that might eventually get there, that you have a deep belief that, yes, that brotherhood or sisterhood does exist, but that, it's not existing in this moment. So what's the bridge? And then you find curiosity about the other person is the bridge where you can start to find out about the other person and then realize and get a fuller picture. And once that fuller picture emerges, it's not one of mutual destruction.
Well, I wouldn't say that love is not the way. No, that's not what I mean. I just don't believe in love that is kind of coercion on other person.
Right.
So somebody is hateful and aggressive to me, and I'm just imposing love into this person. That's kind of, well, probably I don't fully understand Bob, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's sort of, I don't know, hubris? No, maybe no, this is a harsh term. No.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I don't really understand, but well, I believe in such love, but I don't believe in kind of imposing this love on the other person. I rather believe in curiosity. And I suppose
Mm-hmm.
Bob has this, I hope we are not that far from each other, and I'm curious what Bob will
Mm-hmm.
say about what I'm saying right now. Well, that's
Okay, so you wanted to make sure that a correction that you wanted to make sure that you knew that you do believe that a place of deep love does exist and is the way to go. But what you were looking at and what Bob was saying, and you're not quite sure, it was kind of jokingly and things like that, but that you don't mean to impose the love on somebody, saying you have to love me. And imposing, but rather through curiosity, a person will find a way to community independently and without coercion.
I'm not sure what is jobting. Jobting?
What?
You said something like that on the jotting or jotting.
I
You
don't.
use word I don't know, but I
Oh,
have to
okay.
make one more correction.
Sure.
Imposing, I don't mean imposing that you will love me. I mean imposing my love on you.
Right.
That's what I have sort of problem. But when I am curious of another person, I love this person.
Right. So I think what you're, as I understand it, what you're trying to say is that not somewhat imposing the love and not wanting to make them love you, but sort of imposing on them that you love them, and that rather that curiosity or leads to greater engagement in a
Yeah.
more naturalistic and less coercive way.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay, great.
I hope Bob will help me understand if I misunderstood him.
Right. Okay. Let's see. All right, Bob, will you listen to me?
I'm listening.
Okay, great. All right. I sort of got yours, love him into submission was sort of like a joke. I don't think, knowing you personally, you know, you have very strong beliefs, but I've never felt that you personally, and I don't think that's what Carolina is saying either. I think what we're trying to do here is clarify a concept. You know, we know that, you know, there are people who proselytize in our families, on the street, wherever it is, and it feels like an imposition. It feels like you have to, you know, and there's another way that people engage, and I find this in the empathy tent, where you start off by listening to somebody, and then you sort of, you kind of feel into each other. And it's a much more natural, spontaneous, and also the goal is broad. The goal is communication, but it's not to win an argument or to change a person's mind. I'll stop there.
So you're saying that as we try to unpack this bumper sticker, love and mission, you're not wanting to impose. You don't want to be imposing on people. You don't want to proselytize people. But in listening, it opens up a space for relationship and communication, and listening is at the heart of it.
Yeah. And there's been, I mean, there's some people who, for instance, are talking about the dark side of empathy. And essentially their arguments boil down to, you empathize, you gain a person's trust, and then bam, you screw them over, which is, you know, which is unfortunately that those beliefs reflect more in them than the empathy tent movement. I'll stop there.
So this dark side of empathy that some people mention, an empathic listener lulls someone into submission, and then they bam, try to impose upon them, and that's not it. Empathy is listening and listening and listening. Right,
and you are changed as you listen, as you also are changing others. It's a kind of mutual acceptance.
So as one listens, the listener is changed, and as one listens, the speaker is changed, and it's a mutual relationship.
Yeah, and people go under all sorts of labels. Like when I set up at the farmers market, you know, the empathy tent at the farmers market, there were people from the Flat Earth Society there. And, you know, and if you're, you know, if you're out in public from the Flat Earth Society, you need social skills. You do. Go ahead.
So when you go to the farmer's market with the empathy tent, you need to be wary of labels, because in the same farmer's market, there may be a flat earth tent. And it takes some courage and some smarts to be a flat earther in a public space.
Right. And the man, you know, I've watched him, and he has skills. And then I walked over there, and this is how every concept can be twisted. I walked over there, and there were a whole bunch of Bible quotations, which, you know, all right, you know. So, and I thought, really? That's your takeaway from the Bible? I mean, there's do unto others. I'm a big fan of the Golden Rule. I really am. And I mean, it's great. And, you know, and I would accept, you know, that you know, but really, you go away, and then you kind of think, oh yeah, the Bible, the Golden Rule, that's okay. But really, the main point here is that the Earth is flat.
So you're visiting this flat Earth tent, and you're surprised to learn that they're using the Bible as justification for their stance. And so the real question is, what backup do we use for empathy for flat Earth? It seems to bolster our position, and we use as a 2x4 to say, I'm right because it's printed right here.
Right. Yeah, the misuse of that. Thanks, Bob. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. Carolina, would you please listen to me?
You don't give chance, Marta.
I think, Marta, you've listened to me before.
Okay. You have right to choose whoever you want.
Okay.
I just.
Okay, Carolina.
I'm listening.
I like your curiosity strategy. And when I'm spouting off slogans like love people into submission, I need specific strategies like curiosity, which are so powerful and so useful and so effective.
So you're referring to my to what I was saying about your former speech, and you like what you call the curiosity strategy, and you're referring to your slogan, which is sort of shortage, but obviously it requires some sort of strategy, and you like this idea of curiosity.
And empathy is a fantastic strategy for loving people. Without saying the word love, if you listen to them, it is unspoken, but I think deep down we get it, that listening and curiosity and openness are great ways to be a loving neighbor.
So you believe also that empathy is a great method, great strategy, or sort of loving without saying, without talking about love. It is unspoken, as you said, but it is there between people who listen to each other.
And in some people's consciousness, people want to be powerful. People want to be in control. People want to subdue other people and come out on top. But with empathy, there's no conquest, there's no power issue, there's no control issue. It's merely accepting what others say. It's just pure acceptance.
So now you're talking about culture and our culture and the fact that a lot of people want to get power, control, being over top, above others. And when we focus on empathy and empathic dialogue and listening, will we focus on empathy? There is no place for controlling others or overcoming, overrunning anybody. There is only place for acceptance.
And hearing you say that, repeating that, reflecting that, empathy is not powerful, it's not controlling, it is just being open and accepting.
And for you, empathy has nothing to do with power or controlling. It is only about being open and accepting. Openness and acceptance.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Okay, Marta, would you listen to me?
Yes.
I'm grateful to Bob for his explanations. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, that's first thing. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, so you're very grateful, and you want to say so to Bob for what he just shared, and
Yeah.
it touched something.
And I believe he beautifully connected curiosity with empathy. I kind of missed that. And I'm grateful for this connection between curiosity and empathy. It's when I heard that, it was, oh gosh, that's obvious. Why I didn't notice that? So I'm grateful for this putting together empathy and curiosity.
Yeah, so you're grateful for Bob for bringing together empathy and curiosity, and it's obvious in a way you think now, but it didn't seem so. It hadn't occurred to you.
Yeah. So good. It was good to hear that. And another thing was I was thinking about something Bill was talking earlier, and what came to me about the visioning culture, it was something about end that justifies the means, and that we can't go this way. It doesn't. We can't achieve any beautiful visions with wrong means. And this is very important, that actually ends and means are the same. There is no such thing like end justifying the means.
Yeah, and you're saying something that was prompted by something that Bill said earlier, and it's this very strong feeling that the ends don't always justify the means, and that it's important to do things in a way that is in accordance to what we want in the end.
Well, I mean, and never justify means. If we use wrong means, we abandon the end, the goals. So we can't use wrong means. And the beauty of empathy circle is that it is the mean that is actually the end. Because as Edwin said, we are micro community. We are what we want to achieve. And when we use this method, somehow here and now, we are in our goal, in a moment of, like, we are achieving our goal right now. That's the beauty of this idea that end and means are the same.
Yeah, so nothing justifies the means. Basically, we always need to pick ways of doing things that are in line with where we want to get to.
Yes.
And in the empathy circles, we feel that very, very strongly, because you are embodying what you want to achieve by doing it in the present.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you. That was great.
Bob.
I'm listening.
Yeah, embodiment is a word that has been very present with me lately. I've thought for years about studying to become a dance. It's 5 rhythms. It's kind of a free dance sort of therapy for groups thing, and I think the reason I was attracted to that particular dance modality, it's because it's this embodiment of values, I suppose. Yeah. So there's something this week for me about embodiment that Carolina that we're doing now, embodying of the values that you want to
So the word embodiment resonates richly in you, and you talk about in the past studying a dance movement, the 5 motions.
5 rhythms.
5 rhythms.
Mm.
And this appeals to you because of its embodiment of the goals, of the values that you aspire to.
Yeah. And in this and I come back to I used to do it more in a way, the embodying my values. And there's something about taking up or not taking up space, or you know, the whole thing that you were saying earlier about being so love that others that impacts on others around you in a way. And although you're not doing it necessarily to affect others, one can do it just by embodying it. It's how to be respectful of others in the way we embody our values.
So as you discover this embodiment notion and you are conscious of living values, there is an energy, a power, an effectiveness in just being the values that that has an effect on the world around you.
And you see it when you see these Buddhist monks, and you see these, you know, you see certain people, and just by their presence, there's something, you know, there's something there. And you might not know anything about this person, but there's an energy about it. And so as much as I think about doing in the activism, you know, doing as in acting outside of myself, there's also this work of embodying that is an individual work in a way that I also need to do.
So you mentioned just looking at some Buddhist monks, there is a presence, there is a power, there is a being there that has energy to it, and that you're pondering how you yourself can be that kind of presence, that energy, that power, that embodiment, as a standing witness to the values you hold.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. I feel heard.
Bill, would you please listen to me?
Sure, Bob. Be happy to.
One of my dear, dear friends has a new mantra. And it is involved in 2 parts. The first is beloved, and then the second part is be loved. And he's real big on be.
Okay, so a friend of yours has a kind of a mantra or words to live by that you really resonate with, which is beloved, and then to be loved. And your experience of him is to be, that he's in the moment and he's aware.
Yeah, and it is such a joy to be in the moment and be listening and be aware and be attentive and be mindful and be heartful. Mm-hmm. And I am so grateful to Marta for offering this concept, and what a gift. Thank you.
Okay, so you really resonated with what Marta said about, experiencing and actually being in the moment, and you're very grateful for her to bring that up.
Right. And so today's, in my time zone, it's Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And between our meeting today and hopefully our meeting next week, what a great opportunity I have to be wherever I am. What a treat to look forward to this coming week.
Mm-hmm. So in looking at the coming week and our next meeting, you're actually looking at, rather than just saying, okay, we're doing the empathy circle, so now we're being loving, or we're doing, you're excited by the chance to, to embody those values of the empathy, the movement intent, and, greater spiritual values in the moment as you experiencing life. So it's a great opportunity for you.
And so as November ends tomorrow and December begins on Sunday, a new month, a new week, a new way to be in the world, and what a treat.
Okay, so you're just noting the end of the month and the end of the week, and then there's always a new beginning, and so this perspective that Marta talked about makes you excited and happy, and you want to try it out.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay, sure, Bob. All right. All right. Let's see. I forgot what exactly. I think I've talked to everybody's talked to everybody. So I'll go to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. So I really, I really resonate. I've known people like that. I know this guy, Chip, who I consider the nicest person in the world. So Chip, if you ever see this, you get my vote. And I'm just, actually I'm riffing and so I was just thinking about just how people take weird stuff from, it seems like, the essential Bible. And so, and so bringing forth, thinking that a culture of empathy needs humor. I just riffed off this, of this flat earth society, that's the takeaway. So I was thinking like, so what are the other thing the Bible talks is about how to stone prostitutes. And so, I'm thinking like, so what's the great revelation? I'm just thinking about like this village in biblical Israel, Shlomoville, the village of the weak-armed. And they, instead of putting the prostitutes in a pit, they put the prostitutes on a hill. And they found that they weren't strong enough armed to actually hit the prostitutes. And not only that, but then the stones would roll down the hill and they'd stub their toes. And then one guy reads the Bible and he goes, Shlomo, I said, we've been doing it all wrong. A pit. The Bible says, isn't the Bible so wise? They told us to use a pit. And that's the kind of crazy stuff that people will take from perfectly good material and make crazy stuff out of it.
So you're referring to this? That will be difficult. I will try.
You don't have to do the whole joke, yeah.
Yeah, but you're referring to the situation from the local market when you met people who believe in flat earth, and they use Bible to argue, and you made a joke about reading Bible literally and taking all the instructions or the description literally, that it leads us to the wrong choices and it misleads us.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Right. You know, and even, you know, I mean, I never got the concept of the children's crusade. Seems to me that that's just simply child abuse.
And you recalling children crusades,
Uh,
which you believe were simply children abuse.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the prosecution of witches, which is like the original Catch-22. So if they tie you up and throw you in the water,
Yeah.
if you drown, you're not a witch. But if somehow you can survive, then that proves you must be a witch, and you have to be put to death another way.
So you show up. You
Mm-hmm.
you recall another thing like witch hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and this rule that
Mm-hmm.
kind of is a kind of catch-22,
Mm-hmm.
that when witch is drowning it, when the woman is drowning, it means that he
Mm-hmm.
was honest and she wasn't a witch, and when she survived on the surface, that means she was witch and she need to die in other cruel way.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to recognize too, as I'm putting it, and I think of the women, like how this is directed against women, and that this persecution of witches was actually a persecution of the cult, not cult, but the belief in Mary as being as a co-equal with Jesus, and the church felt that they had to wipe that out. So I just wanted to.
I'm
I just
sorry,
want.
Mary was called what? I probably didn't understand the word.
Oh, I just wanted to say is that as I was talking about this, and I just really want to recognize and feel into the suffering of women, and that the witch, quote unquote, was not a witch, but it was another competing philosophy where Mary was exalted with Jesus, so that couldn't happen because that would then make females co-equal with males, and so that was a large reason for the persecution of witches. So
Uh, Probably I still don't understand, but I will try. So you referring to the situation of women,
mhm.
and I suppose Mary Magdalene, you mean?
Yes.
Uh,
No, the mother of Jesus. No.
oh, Mother of Jesus.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't
okay.
get it.
The main idea is just to, as I told the kind of the sort of bizarre thing, it's just how the suffering of women has been really great, and women have been persecuted for just being women, and being very close with the women in my family, and having good relationships. I just want to kind of in myself stop joking and kind of create a moment of silence for all the brave women who have been unfairly treated.
So you recognize a lot of unfair, unjust
Mm-hmm.
treatment and persecution and of women,
Mm-hmm.
very often connected to the Bible teachings, and
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't reflect that fragment,
Sure.
but you meant that in general you want to pay respect to women and the whole suffering they experience during their centuries.
Yes. Thank you, Caroline. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. So whom to choose? I feel lost. Maybe I choose Bob. Mm, uh, When I was talking about curiosity, and now I'm thinking about curiosity and empathy, and all those ideas I would like to live in, I always think about my failures in my real life when I experience a trouble to empathize, not sympathize, empathize with others with whom I disagree.
So as you ponder this mystery of curiosity and empathy, the word failure comes up, and you are pondering those moments when it doesn't work.
Well, I didn't mean it doesn't work. I meant I fail empathizing.
So you
So,
have fallen short in empathy practice.
yeah, so I want to empathize and I fail to do that. And I'm
So
trying to understand myself why it's happening.
So you're curious about yourself and looking for ways to succeed in empathy rather than the occasional failure of being empathic.
Mm-hmm. And it's always connected to the feeling of being hurt, not hurt from hearing, but hurt from harming. It's always like I feel that somebody harmed me, and I feel sort of pain, and I can't overcome this feeling and focus on empathizing. So this is the problem I face when I fail to empathize.
So you speak of the pain and the harm in tension with the desire for empathy, and it's not a pure situation for you.
I'm not sure if I understand what you just said. I mean that somebody do or says something that is harmful to me, I feel hurt by somebody's deeds or words. And this is the moment when I lose this ability to empathize. And that's how I fail.
So when someone does or says something that you perceive as harmful,
I
you
feel
lose your
as
ability to be.
harmful. I feel as harmful. It's not just perceiving. I feel it as harmful. I feel hurt.
So the pain of the hurt of the deeds and the words that hurts you causes you to fall short in your ability to be empathic.
And this is what I envy in positive sense, meaning in positive sense, the Buddhist monks. I remember the story of this monk, Buddhist monk, Tibetan monk, who somehow was escaped from the prison in Tibet and get to Dharamsala, and he was he met Dalai Lama, and Dalai Lama asked him what was the worst experience during the years of imprisonment. And this Buddhist said, well, the worst moment was when I felt that I'm losing love for my oppressors. That was the worst moment.
So your experience of losing the ability to be empathic brings up the story of the Tibetan monk who was imprisoned and abused by the Chinese in the Tibetan prison. He escaped, made it to India, met the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama asks this monk, what was the worst time for you? And the monk said, it was when I lost my love for my oppressor.
Well, he didn't say that he lost. It was he was close to lose his love, and he was frightened by this moment. And that actually means that for years he was able to love the oppressors.
So the one moment of failing to love was balanced by years of the ability to be in the moment and love the oppressor, even in the prison situation.
Yeah, and that's amazing story for me, and I envy this monk the ability to love the oppressor, and the attitude he was able to develop. Even he experienced moments when he felt like he might lose this approach, this attitude, but he was struggling to keep it, and he was able to do that. How to do that?
So you envy and admire this monk for his ability to maintain the loving attitude, even with moments that he was worried that he would lose it.
Mm-hmm. Now my question is how to do that. Thank you.
So your question is how to do that. Marta, would you please listen to me?
With pleasure, Bob.
Edwin has taught me so much about empathy, and he lives it so well. And I admire him for the years and years of practice that he has put into this work. And it shows so richly and so brightly in him. And so that's very encouraging to me.
Yeah, you're admiring Edwin for how he embodies empathy and has been doing for a long time, and you've witnessed it and find it very encouraging.
It's that old joke about the young violinist walking down the streets of New York, and he stops this man and says, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And the man says, "Practice, practice, practice."
Okay. So it's the story of the young violinist that asks how to get to Carnegie Hall and gets told to keep practicing.
Yeah. And so by grace, I hope I can continue to practice, and the end justifies the means. Practicing is the end.
Yeah. So you hope you can carry on practicing and to do it in a way that then and justifies the means, using empathy.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Bill, will you listen to me, please?
Yes, happily.
It occurred to me as well as we were going around that when I've heard of empathy circles the first time, it just seemed like something that I had known about forever, although I hadn't been coming to them and they weren't a part of my life. It just, of course there's empathy circles. And what I was thinking of was how when I was younger, you've probably seen people do this there as well, I'd be one of these people that goes around with a card that says free hugs. And then go, because that was the closest I knew to empathy circles. You know, go around offering people hugs and thinking that empathy circle actually, in a way, it's more, it can reach more people because not everyone is going to want physical contact, or you know, empathy circles have the potential to reach more people than offering hugs would.
Okay. So what you were talking about is that when you encountered the empathy circle, it resonated with a part of you that was inside of you that you knew was always there. And then you were talking about a certain time when you took that inner feeling about the empathy circle, which is community, and had a card and offered people free hugs. And then you're reflecting that now the empathy, that free hugs are nice, but not everybody wants to be touched, and but that the empathy circle, you know, serves the same purpose as showing concern, care, and community.
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, I have this issue of not imposing, or some restraint in imposing it onto others. Like, I think it's the most amazing thing, but I haven't offered to organize one at work. I haven't, you know, yet done one with XR here. I've done it in the region tent, but not, you know, with the general XR. I haven't done it in many places. And maybe I could, you know, maybe I could be that bit more me. But then there's the issue of boundaries. Yeah.
So you've been doing the empathy circle, and you find that it's very, you know, powerful for you and other people. And you're considering about ways to expand more empathy circles in work or in XR as a whole. But then the other issue that comes up for you is the imposition, or, you know, respecting people's boundaries.
Yeah. So tomorrow I got offered by the person who's organizing it, because I couldn't afford to take part, to take part in whole day workshop on boundaries that finishes at the end of the day with a cuddle party. So all of this is new, but it sounds like it, you know, it sounds like all these things that happen. This person that is organizing this workshop, that is asking me, do you want to come for free? I understand you might not be able to afford it. You know, the gift, all of those things. I think it just, and me just talking about boundaries, because they're important in figuring out how to, yeah, it's like all these things come together when you're in the right place.
Right. So you feel it's synchronous, that this person was offering a workshop on boundaries that ends up in a cuddle party, and that you couldn't afford it, but that they invited you to, you know, comp you for free. And then it's kind of re-engaged you with this whole, well, here's this thing, I have this opportunity, and you're looking to explore this more deeply. This is your boundary and connection.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
So it's interesting. In this talk about sort of unconditional love, or loving your enemy and things like that, and boundaries, I really resonate. That was my job. You know, in my job, I've been, you know, regularly kicked, hit, spit on, scratched, falsely accused, everything that my students had experienced themselves, and some new ones that they just thought up. So I find that there's, you know, so boundaries, and also holding your ground, setting limits, I think is very important. And what happened is that, okay.
Give me a chance. Give me a chance.
All right. Yeah. I saw the finger.
So you responding sort of to what we were talking, and including me, about unconditional love and boundaries, and you referring to your work, to your job as a special aid teacher. For years you have experienced a lot of offense, aggression, attacks, different forms, sometimes verbal, sometimes physical, very often physical. So you have personal experience of what we were talking about.
Right. And there were some people and some philosophies of dealing with students which was completely, and I wouldn't even say accepting, but accepting. The students did whatever they wanted, and they could hit you, they could do whatever they want, and you just kind of stayed with them. I'll stop there.
So you experience situation when you actually stick with people who were offensive and very aggressive, and you just have to accept the fact that you have to stay with them.
That was one philosophy, but it ain't me, babe. And not this. The homie don't play that game. So what I found, and I talked to people who worked there, and what happened is that the people were beaten up, depressed. They felt that they couldn't see themselves in that. And they had no idea whether they were being effective or not.
So that's actually, it's not your philosophy, but it was a popular approach among other teachers, and they experienced being beaten up, and they felt like they experienced depression, and they felt that they have no idea if they anyway succeed.
Right. And that's why when we talk about the empathy circle and we go forward, I think it's important to have people who wish to participate agree to the rules of the empathy circle. If you have people who just will not do that, then to try to engage them in an empathy circle is both trying to impose, they see it as imposing your will, as we talked about it, and also what these people, or at least the students did, and I believe anybody who really just keeps on acting out, is that they're seeking a limit.
So you're referring to this idea of establishing some rules we all have to obey. Without those rules, even empathy circle is impossible. So every participant have to accept the rules we follow, and well, that's how it works.
Well, that's how it works. I'm not saying that they have to accept them. They can walk away. I mean, I don't mean to impose it. They can walk away and not do it. But if you're doing the empathy circle, then there are certain rules like mutuality, respectful, listening, things like that, that go hand in glove, and that I don't want to create a bunch of patsies. Do you know the word patsies? I don't want to create a bunch of sacrificial victims who feel that they just, if they're being abused, somehow they're advancing the cause of empathy.
So you made correction that obviously we're not imposing on anybody. We're not imposing on anybody empathy circle. If somebody doesn't want to do that, everybody, they can walk away. But if somebody wants to try, They have to accept the rules of empathy circle and develop all the values we try to develop in the circle. And yeah, I think, did I miss something?
The only thing, just that that I just don't want to create sacrificial victims. I think that
yes.
people can mistake the fact that they're passive and they're not doing anything, and people and somehow that's being effective. And in and of itself, I don't believe that.
Okay, so you're referring to this idea of passiveness. It's wrong. We don't mean passiveness. There is nothing passive in empathy circle or any other non-violent actions. They are actually active. Well, probably I'm a little bit now saying from myself, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just that, what was it? That just people, I think sometimes, and I'm over my time, but they confuse sort of submission with love.
Oh, so what you mean is that we shouldn't confuse love, even unconditional love, with submission or passiveness.
Right. And setting limits was key to that. I set limits with love, but I was not passive.
Okay, so one of the rules is setting limits and rules, and it's maybe limitation, but it's not passiveness.
And it's not without love.
It's not without love. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I feel fully heard, Carol.
Thank you. Well, I think we have 10 minutes left, so I will stop recording and start it again. So thank you for this part of our session.